vas-y. Hein? Attends, Paul.
Here, in this barn, stripped down, rests the last bottler's baler made by Claas, which was the starting point for the company's development and success throughout the world. Paul and Bernard, two model makers, have started to catalogue and measure all of its components. This baler represents an entire chapter in the history of agricultural machinery. The relationship between Claas and Dousset-Matelin is a very special one, as it was our grandfather who, in 1924, sold the first Claas machine in France. For many years, Mr. Claas has been coming to Neuville-de-Poitou to attend our events. And he noticed that we had a 1924 baler. And it was when we met some model makers that we got the idea to give them the task of creating an operational scale model. At the start of the 20th century, the English were the first to market a Strawbinder, followed by Franz Claas Sr. at Klaholz in Westphalia, Germany. The Claas Strawbinder was the first milestone on the company's path to success and would revolutionize harvesting, because it divided straw into portions and tied it to form small bales. This method considerably lightened the workload and reduced storage space requirements. However, the initial models sold were far from perfect. All the parts are catalogued and measured so that this fabulous machine can be recreated in a thick scale. This is the start of an amazing task to bring this machine back to life, which will take the two model makers, Bernard and Paul, who live in Poitou, 3 years to complete. The reaction of the two model makers was to say that it was going to be a long job, enormous in fact, as the creation of the model take more than 1,800 hours of work. After some hesitation and aborted attempts, the young Auguste Claas developed his own model. Blasted by his father's experience, he achieved his aims after the war. All the genius of Auguste Claas is there. As they rebuild the plans for this machine to make the model, Bernard and Paul will have to get inside the head of Auguste Claas in order to understand his genius and appreciate the revolutionary aspect of this component, which knotted the bales of straw. Right from the start, I was convinced that Bernard and Paul could build us a 6th-scale Claas baler and binder that would actually be able to tie knots. I had no doubts. In 1921, Auguste Claas patented the legendary Claas knotter, and the company's name was recognized worldwide. The saga of the Claas family of Arswinkel had begun. We kept this project completely secret, and it was only revealed to a small extent a few months before we gave him this present. At this time, there was only one remaining machine in the southwest of France. It belonged to Dousset-Matelin, a company that has been selling Claas agricultural machinery since the 1920s. This machine was bought by the father of the current manager Mister Dousset, and this is why they did not want to part with this legendary machine.
Donc ce qui aurait été bien, c'était de trouver un...
It would have been nice to find an original present for Mr. Claas. Mr. Claas's collaborators suggested and actually asked us if this machine could be exhibited in the Arswinkel Museum. I am not really willing to send back this machine, which represents an old memory, as it is the first-class machine we sold.
Classe que Dousset-Matelin a vendu.
In record time, the Noter became the company's greatest sales success. Scientists and users were won over by it to such an extent that by 1926, more than 1,000 Strawbinders from other manufacturers were equipped with this Noter. The Dousset brothers decided that a fully operational scale model should be created, an authentic replica. The difficulties this would present, and the amount of work and ingenuity it required, were appropriate for the kind of gift and surprise that Dousset-Matelin wanted to give Helmut Claas. Once the plans were drawn up, the work on the components started. Bernard and Paul split the task to play to their respective tools, talents and passions. But often they found themselves in the same workshop, getting down to work on the same parts with the same passion. From 1926, everything happened very quickly, and by 1929 annual production was up to 2,960 machines. The Claas Strawbinders were very popular with arable farmers and threshing contractors. The bales of straw were neatly separated and securely tied, even when bending short straw. With its binder, Claas even managed to beat its English competitor in other European markets, such as France, the Netherlands, Belgium and Switzerland.
Il faut noter d'ailleurs que ce lueur de...
It is worth noting that this 1900 binding mechanism is still used in modern balers that we sell to arable farmers.
On peut peut-être parler également de...
Just as the modern combustion engine is still based on its original form, so the binder also still exists in its original format.
Et le lueur, il existe toujours dans sa forme originelle.
The fact that they had to create tools and use techniques as diverse as laser cutting, forging and precision mechanics, and also use skills such as carpentry and painting, showed the difficulties that had to be circumvented or overcome to successfully complete this model. The amazing thing is, the action carried out by the model makers were the same as those carried out by the workers in the Arswinkel factory 50 years previously. After its moment of glory, the need for a more dense and accurate bale would lead to the development of straw balers from 1931, which would then gradually replace the old straw binders. The mother factory in Arswinkel soon became too small for the ever-increasing number of balers and combine harvesters being manufactured. This is why the decision was made in the 1950s to build a new baler factory at Saint-Rémy-Wapy, close to Metz, with Europe on the doorstep. Metz became as successful as Arswinkel, and by 1962, the 1000 LD 100 oscillating piston baler was produced. In 1969, the factory was made a public company and became known as Usine Claas France SA, UCF. Now, all the parts have been machined. It's the final moment of doubt. After all these hours spent, would the binders from 1924 run again? Or would miniaturization be the death of the knotter, already so small and precise on the actual machine? The time for assembly has arrived, and for testing. The machine has to work, or all these hours will be wasted, which does not bear contemplation. And yes, it works. The miracle has occurred again. A knot on this tiny scale has just been produced by the machine.
Nous sommes donc partis, Jean-Pierre Matelin.
The scale model was finished in March 2009, and in May 2009 the five of us went to meet Mr. Claas in the house at Arswinkel that had belonged to his father, August Claas. The baler and its famous knotter are returning to their ancestral home. While reduced to a sixth of the size, it has all the skill of the original, and it's now taking pride of place in the company museum in Arswinkel, back where it all started. And today, even though it has been subject to numerous adaptations in order to handle different baling pressures, bale sizes and greater outputs, the Claas knotter continues to be the central component of every baler. Today, Claas balers are still incredibly successful. There are many reasons for this, such as the continuous adaptation to the changing needs of agriculture. But whatever the reasons for its success, the knotter in the first true Claas Strawbinder still forms the cornerstone of the company, more than 80 years after its creation.